Yes, people, yes, people, yes, people. Welcome back to the We Talk Football podcast. We're back again, and it's the big one. We're talking West Ham, the heart of London, and we've got a very special guest today. Who have we got, Quakes? We've got Nicky Hawkins of West Ham Fan TV. How you doing, Nicky?
Very well, thank you, Jamie. Thank you so much for having me, boys. I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that you've come on. I've been watching your videos for a long time, so it's good to have a West Ham fan on the channel that actually talks some sense. But
I'm outnumbered.
Yeah.
They've come mob-handed.
Well, Nicky, let's start off. So, as I said, like this is the wrap up. We've been asking fans all week what they think about the season. Obviously, as a West Ham fan myself, I've got my own opinions, but we're now at the end of the season. We can look at the season as a whole. What are you thinking right now as a West Ham fan?
I'm positive, Jay. I'm positive, and that's not a word that I'm greatly associated with when it comes to West Ham. Over the last sort of 6 years, I think I've been doing this now. It's not been smooth sailing, but to have back-to-back seasons where you've secured European competition for your own league position, I think it's something to be celebrated by the fan base. I know it's Conference League, but we went a long way in the Europa League this season. And I'm convinced we was, them two games, mate, if we'd have won them, I think we'd have won the whole thing. And that's something to be celebrated. From where we've come from just before lockdown. You remember, lockdown, it's a funny thing, lockdown, because it seems so far away, but it seems so close as well, But when we came back from lockdown, we was in serious trouble of going down, and I mean serious trouble.
Yeah, I remember.
So to go from fighting for games to scrap for your life at the bottom of the league to Europa League semi-finals and then achieving 6th and 7th place in consecutive seasons. Now, Jamie, you're a West Ham fan, and you know as well as I do that we follow one season with about 5 or 6 bad ones. So to have two, I would class them as good seasons. I think it's a testament to the manager, to be honest.
I totally agree. And I think it's a bit of a running joke on this podcast, especially is because we started this podcast at the start of lockdown. So since we started this podcast, West Ham have been on an upwards trajectory. But I've been a West Ham fan for 30 years. I've seen my club relegated numerous times. I've never really seen us compete, consistently. So there's definitely things to be positive about. And I am positive on the whole when it comes to West Ham, but I feel like there was a lot of mistakes that, if we'd have ironed them out, especially like I think the biggest one for me is it does feel like as much as we are positive at the end of the season, we finished two consecutive seasons in European places. There are parts of it where it's almost like a missed opportunity because we didn't strengthen the squad in January, whether that was the board or whether that was Moyes being prudent with who he wanted to bring in the door, who knows? But it's a missed opportunity. You look at us being fourth, you look at us going into that Frankfurt game. I know that, the chances weren't with us on both games, but we didn't help ourselves going down so soon in the first game in terms of conceding a goal. And then in the second one, we kind of shot ourselves in the foot with Aaron Cresswell getting sent off so soon into the second half. So we never really gave ourselves a fighting chance. And we didn't really, and I'm sure you remember going into that second game, we had so many injuries that we were going to potentially be, playing Elise, at centre back, which is one of those ones where it's like, going into a European semi-final, we're potentially playing a youth player, so it does feel like on the whole a very positive season, but there are aspects to it where I think that, if we had brought a few more, players in the front door, maybe.
I agree with that, Jack. I think, as I said, Moyes deserves a lot of praise, but I don't think he can give a person praise without giving him criticisms as well. And there are question marks over, he's nicknamed Dithering Dave, and he's nicknamed Dithering Dave for a reason. Maybe he's being a bit too meticulous about who he's bringing in. At that time, with the fall of Antonio, for instance, the fall of form. I mean, 6 goals in the first 9 games, and then I think 4 in 28 after that. It's not good enough as your leading centre forward when you're fighting on them fronts, and especially when you've got literally no options, And I think I honestly don't think that it's all down to Moyes. Now, this is just my opinion. You know, I know Moyes took it on the chin, but I think Moyes is a very diplomatic person, and he's seen, you know, the crowd power, what can happen when, you know, that crowd start to turn, because he was there for the Burnley game, if you remember, and he can show, he's seen firsthand what our wrath is, and how the place can turn toxic quickly. So I think he took that on the chin. I don't think they ever had any intentions to sign anyone in January, and I think, as per usual, I think that last day, sort of will he come in and you know, the likes of Diaz being linked to us. I think it's just a circus. I honestly do. I think it's all a parade. It's all a bit of theatre. To be able to say at the end of the season, well, we tried and we couldn't find anyone and we couldn't see this. I don't believe it's honest. I don't believe that we honestly thought we was going to, and that has got to be noted as a negative, because we could have, up to the last sort of 6 weeks of the season, we were still in with a shout within top four. It didn't look like nobody wanted it. People were messing up left, right, and centre. We still had a shout of the Europa League, but we did run out of steam. That's exactly what happened. We run out of steam and we run out of bodies. You know, you have to, if you want to compete for these places, any sort of competition, and this is where I'm going to praise Moyes as well, which a lot of people have seen as negatives. You've got to have plan B, and if that fails, plan C, and if that fails, plan D. You know, regardless of whether you're tinkering about with your playing staff that you've already got, or you're bringing people in. And that's what I would say that he needs to implement. You know, we're losing a lot of players. There's a big rebuild next season. This is the one. This is the one where we're gonna tell what we're made of in terms of competing, because, you know, we lost that game to Brighton when, you know, Europa League inevitably was in our hands that day. You know, Man United weren't beating Palace, and all we had to do was beat Brighton. I know we haven't beaten them for 10 years. But Moyes come out at the end of the game and said things like, you know, I'm not having the players if they're going to play like this. You know, they can, you know, people can walk out the door. I don't think I've done enough job. If we play like that at the beginning of the next season, we're going to be fighting at the bottom of the league, which I totally agree. And I think that's something that is a positive, because for too long, Jamie, we've seen at West Ham, it's been like a retirement home and an holiday village. You know, they lose these games and we fall at the final word, when the manager just goes, oh, well, you know, what could I do? You know, the boys are tired. You know, we've been in Europe making excuses. He wasn't making no excuses. And I find that as a positive, and a lot of people see it as a negative. But as I say, next season is the one where we're going to see what we're made of.
What I will say from an outside looking in, from West Ham, like you say, you normally follow up a good season with a bad season. Remember the last season you had at the Berlin ground, and then the season after that wasn't amazing. With West Ham, there's a lot of goodwill around it. And I look at the results and I look at the fixtures you've had this season, whether it be beating Chelsea at your place, that kind of started our kind of roller coaster of the season. Whether it's beating Liverpool, one of the few teams to beat Liverpool this season, whether it's ending Man City's stranglehold on the League Cup by beating them in the League Cup, and you took points off of them, which almost affected their league running when they're going for the Premier League title. From an outside looking in, it's very, very positive at West Ham at the moment. And it seems like with the London Stadium, you boys can talk about this more than I can, because you've been there a lot this season. Feels like you're making that more of a home now. And we've seen it in the big European games, whether it's like knocking out Sevilla, who are well-versed in European competitions, Lyon as well. Could speak about, Nicky, in terms of the atmosphere at the London Stadium. Has that kind of softened, and have you guys kind of embraced that as your home now?
I think, listen, I'm not a fan of the stadium, and I've never have been a fan. I've always voiced my opinion on the stadium, but it is what it is. You have to make it as good and as intimidating as you can. It's not easy, but we have shown that we've got, you know, with 60,000 in there, we can make noise. We can, you know, we can make the place electric. I've never been a fan. I don't think there's going to be certain people that will never see that as home, you know. But then there's people that aren't as affiliated with the bowling as we are, the new generation of people that will know no different. So it will change as the fan base changes. I think we're just content now. You can bang your head against the door as many times as you can, but you're never going to open it. So you have to just get on with it. And I'm sure there are teams. I met a Brighton fan on last Sunday who said they don't like the Amex. I've met Tottenham fans that say they don't like the new stadium. You're always going to have that affiliation with your old stadium. Should we have moved? I don't think so. No way. I think we would have done just as well at the Bowling as we've done here, maybe even better. But you just have to accept it, and it's positive results come with positive attitudes, I think, and people are more willing to, embrace it when the team are playing well. I think one of the problems that we had in the past is we was terrible on the field after following up a really good season where we could have qualified for Champions League last season at the Bowling, and then we've gone to this stadium which it just wasn't ready for football even as it is now, and I don't think it'll ever be ready for football. But it was really not ready. The team are worse, the players are worse. We're getting worse results. We're worse off in the league. Apparently, we was worse off financially. But the board are trying to tell us that it's the best stadium migration that's ever existed. You can't. You have to call. A leopard never changes his spots. They'll just tell lies through there. They try and put a positive spin on it, and that's what upset a lot of the people at the time. And I'm sure Jamie will agree. You only have to look at what's going on around you. There are people fighting in the stands. There's stewards that don't understand football crowds and are dragging people out in headlocks and MMA fighting style. The players are getting beat off the pitch. Everything is 50% dearer at the new stadium, and they're telling us it's successful. Who's it successful for? If it's not for the fans, who's it successful for? It's successful for them because they've got a lovely plush box that they can sit in now that was better than the one at the Bowling. And I think that's where a lot of the frustrations lie. As I say, positive results come with positive attitudes.
Yeah, and I echo a lot of what you said there. But what I would also say is, one of the best atmospheres I've ever been at in terms of live football was the second leg against Sevilla. And I know this stadium's never going to be built for football. It will never be the Bowling ground, but football's about chapters ultimately. And like you say, it's kind of, we've just got to kind of, it's happened and move with it now, and hopefully the team can progress on what they're doing. Like I said, that second leg against Sevilla, I'm sure you were at the game.
Yeah,
I've never heard so many fans in unison singing, West Ham are massive everywhere we go. I think that's like, that there is the spirit of West Ham, and that's the kind of atmosphere and intimidating atmosphere that you'd expect at the Bowling ground. So if West Ham fans can try and translate that and communicate it a little bit more in the future, I think hopefully it'll never be the Bowling ground, but hopefully it can be the London Stadium, chapter 2 of West Ham, I'd say.
Well, we've proven it to ourselves that we can make it, Jamie, and it's the board have failed us, but now it ultimately lays in our responsibility to make it.
Yeah,
that's where the responsibility lies, in my opinion.
Well, I'll go and chime in one more before we do the trade question with you in terms of transfers. With myself, when I look at West Ham, I look at them as a prime team to be taken over. If you look at the location, you look at, I know it's football, but you look at the brand of West Ham, how recognizable the colours are, the history of West Ham, where they're based in London. They are a team that if you're a foreign owner, you're looking to get into English football, which a lot of these Americans, a lot of people in the Middle East are looking to do. West Ham look like the prime kind of team to do that. And when you look at the later days of Mike Ashley's reign at Newcastle, the spending stopped. Like, for example, I look at West Ham when you got rid of Haller last January and you haven't brought anybody in to replace him. To me, that smells fishy because you just know the squad need that strengthening. And I feel like the spending stopped for the owners because, from my opinion, it looks to me like they want to get out, and it looks to me like they want to maybe put West Ham in a position where they're in a decent state for financial fair play. So when the next owners come in, they can kind of go big with it. I want to kind of get your opinion on that, Nicky. Do you think there's a sell coming in soon for West Ham?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's always been the aim. They had this date in mind, and I don't think they're very stubborn, our owners, and I think they've placed a value on it. They know what they want to get. They know their get out point. It looks like something's been arranged with Kretinsky, who came in last year, and he will be our owner in the next year or so, because they've got a date of 2023, and I think since 2010 when they took over, they've always had that. I mean, they didn't know that they was going to put that sanction on them, because they initially wanted to own the stadium. But ever since that date's been set, that they're out the door. They're two old men now, and I think they receive too much abuse, which I think rightly so, because they have told us a lot of lies. Some of the abuse, it goes too far, but they receive a lot of negativity. They probably don't need that at this point in the juncture of their lives. Gold's very ill. Sullivan looks very ill. I know they've both got children, but going by the abuse they've received, they probably wouldn't fancy taking that over. Because if I was their kids, I wouldn't. Because you're just an extension of them. And they've always had this date in mind. And in my opinion, they've tried to scrape by with as little outlay as they can. And I think there will be investment this summer, because I think Kretinsky will demand it, because if he's going to take over next year, he don't want to be taking over a club that's gone from two successive European campaigns to, taking over a team in mid-table. But I think that's already been agreed. I think there's a lot of things behind the scenes that have already been agreed. But I don't think that they're putting any more. Well, I know that they're not going to put any more of their money in. So, yeah, it is primed for someone to take over. It's just now I think it's. I don't know too much about Kretinsky. I've read a little bit about him. I know Slavia Prague fans are not that pleased with him, but this is a different kettle of fish. It's a big brand. A London club is a big brand. And I think if you look at our transition from the bowling into the London Stadium, I think it's all been about the brand. They've been trying to push the brand for a long time. They changed the badges with the London on it and everything else. I think it's always been geared towards that sort of investment and that sort of buyer. They want an amount of money and they will go. So it is primed. London is obviously attractive. The only negatives I can see is that, one, we don't own our asset, and that could change. So there is no assets there per se to own. There's no physical. We've got a 99-year lease, and it all depends on that being solid, because they don't want to be found homeless, 4 or 5 years down the line if they find a sort of a break in the contract or whatever, because it looks like, especially with the London Mayor, it looks like he's going to try and do anything he can to get us out of there, because he don't think we're paying our fair share. But it can be an attractiveness as well, because it seems like that's set in stone. And the other one is the amount of teams there are in London that you compete with. You've got Tottenham, Chelsea, Arsenal, all on your doorstep. With someone like Newcastle, for instance, that's it. You've got Newcastle. That is it. With someone like Leicester, you've got Leicester. There's no one competing with Leicester in Leicester. And that's the only downfall I can see. But it is attractive. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I totally agree. And I think one thing you mentioned there is obviously investment being key in us going forward. I think especially on and off the pitch, with losing key pivotal figures in and around the squad. We've lost Mark Noble, Mr. West Ham, but we've also, we've lost Stuart Pearce now, who's obviously David Moyes' number 2, and he's been, important for us. I mean, let's get into it. As I said, we've been asking football fans all week, the opportunity to trade a player. Now, let's disregard football finances. Let's disregard transfer fees. I'm just going player for player. Don't have to worry about wages or anything. Would you swap at this moment in time Jared Bowen for Tammy Abraham?
No. No,
I wouldn't either. I wouldn't either. I think it's so hard. I think we've got Declan Rice, who's untradeable. And I think for me personally, everyone else in the squad really is expendable at this point.
Yeah.
I think Jared Bowen's the only one.
Yeah, I think they're the only two I wouldn't. Dec and Jared. Jared's got, I think he's pivotal in the way we play. He's perfect for us. There are players. I mean, you look at the likes of Fornals. Fornals is a very Moyes kind of player. He works really hard, but sometimes he lacks in front of goal. You've got other players like maybe Antonio that can be brilliant in front of goal, but sometimes don't work so hard. Jared's got both of them. And the way we play at the moment, he's got goal scoring ability and he works, really, really hard for the side. So, and I think Dec's the same. I think Dec's a leader. He hasn't got too many goals in his locker, but playing in the position he does, you wouldn't expect him to have. And I think he's sort of like the key to us. So them two are the only two I wouldn't swap. I would swap any other player for Tammy Abraham, because I think Tammy Abraham's a really good player. But not them two, just not them two.
No, it's such a hard one. Like I said, because I agree with everything you're saying. How about Pablo Fornals for Conor Gallagher?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I would as well. I would
draw Pablo Fornals to and that's no knock on Pablo Fornals. I love Pablo Fornals. I think
he's my favourite player. He's my favourite player at West Ham.
He's a fantastic player. He works so hard. He loves the club, but it's just something we need. I think, if you put Ben Rama in for Fornals, I don't think there's much change. If you put Conor Gallagher in our midfield, I think a lot changes. So, listen, I've got a list of I'm just about to do a few videos now, and I've got a list of targets that I think we should be going for. If Conor Gallagher at 40 million is what they're looking for him, mate, pay it. Get him through the door, because I think he would be the difference in our midfield. And any centre forward really that can score some goals. There's so many out there. You have to pay the money, but that's the price of getting goals. Goals are the most expensive things in football. But we've got a lovely foundation. I think Zuma's fitted in brilliantly. I think if we sign Areola, I think he'll be our number one, and I think he's a really good goalkeeper. You've got Declan, you've got Bowen, and there's just a few more additions that we need. A few more additions. I think we can be a competitive side.
And again, I would put Antonio in those list of names as well. But obviously, I just think he needs some competition. He needs a top quality player that's going to, test him at every week in training and test him on the weekends. So when he has those games, when he's not working hard,
I feel so sorry for him, because he called for backup in January and they never got it. And I liken him because, let's be honest, Mikel is very raw, he's powerful, he's strong. On his day, he can score goals, and he's proven that over the last 2 seasons. But the mark of a centre forward isn't when you're scoring goals, it's when you're not, and how you respond to that. And the reason why I feel very sorry for Mikel is he's hit that dry patch, that barren spell. And if you look at other clubs who've got centre forwards that maybe can drop out for a few games and get their head round things, or even just things like taking advice from other strikers and say, look, what would you do? What would you do here? He's got no one. It's like trying to teach someone to be a plumber when you haven't got another plumber. You can't learn a new skill unless you've got someone that already has that skill. And that's what I find at West Ham at the minute with Mikel. He's, as I said, he's raw, he's powerful. I love him. I've always loved him. I think he's a very positive influence around the changing room. He's a lovely guy if you've ever met him. He's, full of beans. He likes the club. He's a very popular member among the squad. But his body language over the last few months is, I've tried everything. What can I do? And he hasn't got that advice. There is no centre forward advising him what to do. I don't even think we've got one working on the coaching stuff. So,
it says it all.
Yeah, so, I feel very sorry for him. If we got another centre forward, you'd see the best out of Mikel, I'm sure.
100%. It would just give him 5 minutes to rest as well, because I don't think he's been firing on all cylinders ever since he came back from, that first Jamaica trip. I think he's been off of it since then, really. We could talk West Ham all day. I mean, I could anyway, Nicky, but obviously it was just a quick summation of the season itself. Where can everyone find you and, West Ham Fan TV?
West Ham Fan TV on everything, all the socials. Yeah, we've got we've got a Patreon as well, where we do a weekly podcast, which is going down really well, actually. Consider joining that if you want to hear us talk just nonsense, really. But West Ham Fan TV's our channel. It's across all the social media, so you search for us, you'll find us, and we look forward to seeing you.
Top man. Well, we'll put that all in the description for you guys. So if you are looking for some West Ham content on the internet, I watch it myself. Look at the description, you'll find it there. And Quaker, where can they find us?
So you can find us on Twitter at WTF Podcast 90. We're on Instagram, We Talk Football Podcast. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel. We'll be back with more videos like this very, very soon.
Cheers, guys. Catch you next time.